Guys, I found something amazing in this creek bed. It is a broken piece of glass. Yeah! All right, so you're probably thinking to yourself, why is this guy so happy about a broken piece of glass? He's obviously crazy, and I probably shouldn't watch the rest of his YouTube videos. And while you're partially correct, this is a pretty cool find. So this is a really old, really thick, nice piece of broken glass, and we're gonna make something really cool out of this today. So continue watching, and let's see what we can come up with. All right, so the stuff we're gonna need for today's project is gonna be a small rock, a piece of leather, a pressure flaker, so it's just a piece of wood with a piece of copper through the middle of it, and then of course our broken piece of glass, and a broken cinder block. Okay, so I want to be real transparent here. I forgot my chair, and this broken cinder block just happened to be out here, so that's what that's for. All right, so once we have all of our components, we're gonna jump right in and get started. So a lot of times I will nap on my lap or my leg. I call it lap napping. Most of this can be done, since we're mostly pressure flaking, most of it can be done right here in your hand. I'm gonna do a lot of that so you guys can see it. But we want to start just by cleaning these edges up. So if you look at this, I still have a little bit of this edge left from that bottle. And then I have these squared off edges, which we'll work through how to get rid of those. But I'm gonna start with this. I always try to start with my biggest problem areas and then work down from there. So I'm gonna get rid of this. So I'm gonna hit this with my rock at a downward angle, like so. So I'm out in the middle of the woods. If you're doing this somewhere near your house or whatever, make sure that you have like a tarp or something put down to be safe. Okay. So by getting rid of that, I've created a platform here now, and I can work into this edge. If you haven't watched my other video on making arrowheads from glass, please do so. I'll walk through that stuff a little more thoroughly, but I'm gonna knock this one out fairly quickly. So I have a platform all the way across here now. If you watch the other video, you know that square edges are hard to work into. So I'm gonna leave that alone for now, and I'm gonna start knocking some flakes off of this edge. So this piece is fairly straight. It's not too curved. So I'll be able to get that nice and flat with no problem. So I'm not too worried about that. It's got a slight curve here, but it's gonna straighten out just fine. So that's what's cool about this piece, is I don't have to worry about that nearly as much. So I'm just gonna start knocking some flakes off from this edge. Okay, so what I want to do is, now that I have a platform set up here, I want to zigzag my way into the square edge. Okay, so you can't just flake on a square edge, or it doesn't work very well. You want to set up some kind of platform. So platform is anything less than 90 degrees. Again, go back and watch that other video. It's much more in depth. But basically what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna knock a flake off, because I have my platform set up like this. I'm gonna knock a flake off this way. And when I do that, it's gonna remove this material, creating a platform like this, in which case I'll flip it over, use that platform, knock off a piece, flip it over, and you're gonna create a platform. Every time you do that, I'm just gonna zigzag my way across this square edge. And once we're rid of that square edge, we'll have little mountains and valleys all the way across this edge. So it'll be zigzagged. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. And then we'll be able to knock flakes all the way across both faces here and work this down pretty rapidly. So I can start on either side here, because they both have square edges, which is a fairly common thing with broken glass. you'll see, maybe, if I can get it to focus there, I knocked a flake off here. That created this little divot. And I used that as my platform, knocked a flake off down. I'm gonna flip this over. I'm gonna do the same thing. Okay. So there is the flake. See if I can get it to focus. The flake I just knocked off. If I flip that over and get that in the sun, you'll see that I created a platform there. So now I'm gonna push down and in there. That's gonna knock a flake off here and do the same thing. And you'll see we have this zigzag pattern that is starting. So I'll do the same thing. Flip that over and keep working back and forth. It's also called stitching. So you'll see sometimes I'll knock a flake off and then I'll go back and I'll hit it 1 or 2 more times. What I'm doing is bringing that platform up, removing that material and bringing that platform up so it's closer to one face. Okay. The reason I want it closer to this face up here is because when I flip that over, it's going to make it easier for me to knock a flake across that face. And again, this is not a great beginner Flintknapping video. I go much more in depth on my other glass arrowhead video. This one, I found this cool piece of glass and I want to see what we can get out of it, and figured I'd bring you guys along for the ride. But a lot of this is just kind of reinforcing those super basic ideas we learned in the other video. So I'm just going to continue doing that. Knock a flake off, that creates a platform. I flip it over, use that platform to knock off my next flake. Flip it over. And next thing you know, I've zigzagged all the way across. And I've created the stitching pattern. And with that, I can now knock flakes off this side and this side, okay? If I just needed a cutting edge, if I found this and I needed something to cut with, that's all I would have to do is stitch that and maybe knock a few flakes off and sharpen it a little bit. And now I have a knife. Okay, so that's like a 3-minute knife right there. And I'm ready to go, I can cut some stuff up. But we wanna make something really cool and pretty. So I'm gonna do the same thing on this other side. Just knock that flake off, creating that platform. And I'll start stitching across. Make sure that periodically you brush the debris off there. Make sure you don't have any debris on your hands, because that is a good way to bleed. Again, I'll just knock a few flakes off until I get that closer to the face where I want it. Take my own advice, get that glass. I'm gonna bring you guys in a little closer so you can really see this zigzag that we're doing without me having to get in like weird positions and do crazy stuff. All right, so you can see my platform there. I'm gonna knock a flake off. I'm gonna go ahead and knock another flake off to try to bring that center line. Okay, the center line is just this imaginary line But I want to bring that center line closer to the next face. I'll flip that over, find that platform, knock that flake off. And you can see my center line is already up higher where I need it. Flip that over. Sometimes you'll see me doing this little number. All I'm doing is using the tip of my pressure flaker to abrade. So I'm just kind of shaping that platform a little bit. And that'll help me grip the edge with that pressure flaker. And this goes really quickly once you understand the process. So doing it in my lap, it's a little easier to get a little more pressure and a little less tendonitis. I tend to get tennis elbow from having to hold my arm still here. If you do that in your lap, or if you use your leg and brace your arm like that, then you won't get that tennis elbow as bad. You don't think about it too much at first, but as you nap more and more, and then you have to start skipping days or a week or so due to that tennis elbow, you'll start to really wish you didn't do that. All right, so now we have zigzagged all the way across that edge and this edge. Okay, so we have a continuous platform on both edges. Now we are ready to start sending those flakes across these faces and making this look pretty. At this point, it's a functional tool, okay? Now we're just gonna make it look pretty, honestly, which that's what a lot of people go for. But in a survival situation, something like this, you haft it into a handle. Hafting just means we attach it to a handle. Okay, you have a cutting tool. You can bring that to a sharper edge if you want, but you have something you can cut with that's gonna work. Okay, so we could stop here at this point, but I don't want to. So now I want to picture all the little mountains and valleys here. So what I'm gonna do, and placing this on my leather will give it a better, make it easier to see. But I'm gonna have low points all the way across here. So I'm gonna go back with my pressure flaker and I'm gonna hit every low point and knock a flake across. You can see we have that slight curvature. So I'm gonna pay a little more attention to this face than this face to get rid of that curvature, but it shouldn't be too big of an issue, okay? So I'm gonna find the lowest point first, which appears to be right here. And I'm just gonna gently abrade that with my pressure flaker. I'm going to push in really hard and then pop down to release that flake, okay? So inward, pop down, and that's gonna release the flake. I'm gonna find the next lowest point, which is right here. Gently abrade. That's just gonna help me grip the edge of that. Push inward, pop down, and you can see those flakes are traveling a little further now because I'm really focusing on that inward pressure. And the more we get this set up the way we want, the better those flakes are gonna travel. But I'll find the next lowest point, clean up that platform, inward, pop down, that one wanted to fight a little bit. Go to the next one. So every time I knock a flake off, I'm just gonna find the next point, the next lowest point. That's the way I've always done it. I find the lowest point and then I'll work my way back from there. And that seems to work pretty well. Okay, and I didn't zigzag. Can't make words today. I didn't zigzag all the way to the edge, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that because that edge is a pretty low point too. I'll go ahead. Take care of that. Okay, but you can see, holy cow, I cannot focus. You can see that we have those longer flakes starting to come off. So I'm gonna do that all the way across this face. This is a fairly thick piece of glass. So it gives us quite a bit to work with. We have quite a bit to thin, which isn't a bad thing if you're a beginner. It's just more practice. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with how that's starting to look. The more we work this, it's going to get that concave shape. So it's going to have a bevel, and it's going to start to round over the middle section of this. And once you hit that concave shape, those flakes are going to travel really nicely along that. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing to this other side, still focusing on this slightly curved bottom. Remember, periodically go back, clean all your glass off, get all the glass off your hands. Okay, same thing, gonna find the lowest point. Go to the next lowest point. Go to the next lowest point. So this is kind of what you call a continuous platform. It's just got platform set all the way across there. So I can just keep working across. Okay. So that's starting to get where we want it. Right. So you can see that's that face versus this face. So while I'm doing this, I'm also picturing in my head what I want this to be when I'm done. So it's a little thicker at the base here, a little thinner at the top. And you see I'm already calling this the base and the tip. So that gives you an idea of what I'm going for. I'll eventually end up working this down to a point and squaring this off, or, you know, figuring out how I want to do the base. Depending on what kind of knife we make or arrowhead we might, you know, it's going to change. So now I want to knock some flakes off this top side. So what I'm going to do, if this would focus, got a new phone and it doesn't focus as good as my old phone. It's really annoying. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind downward. Okay, so this is the face I just flaked. This is the face I have not flaked. So I'm going to grind downward on this with my rock. I'm doing two things when I do that. One, I'm abrading it. And if you don't know much about abrasion, again, go back and watch my other glass arrowhead video and I will talk about that a little more. But what I'm doing is I'm abrading that. So it's stiffening up that edge, and it's also, by grinding downward, it's removing material and bringing that center line closer to this face. And we want that center line closer to this face so that we can knock flakes across the face and not be hitting it at this angle. We want to knock flakes across the face. So the lower that center line is, the more I can push across. Okay, so then I'll just abrade that a little bit. And now I'm ready to work all the way across this face. So the same thing. This is just the way I do it, but I'll find that lowest point right here. Knock that first flake off. Go to the next lowest point. And you can already see that these flakes are traveling further than this face. And that's because we have that slight curve. Okay, so I don't want to focus too much on this face. I really want to get this balanced so that it's nice and straight and has the same shape on both faces, which is that convex face we're going for. So I'll send a series of flakes across here. And to be honest with you, the only reason I'm really doing this is because that edge, since I just flaked it on the downward side, removing material, bringing that center line up, that edge was now closer to the top side. And that's the only reason I'm doing that, is I'm taking advantage of that face being where it, or that center line being where it was, going ahead and knocking some flakes across this side. And that's doing two things. It's, again, knocking the flakes across this face, but that's also by removing material on the top side, taking that center line back to where I need it on the bottom. Okay, so a lot of thinking backwards in flint knapping, but I've got that kind of where I want it. So I'm gonna do the same thing to the other side. Find the lowest point, start knocking off flakes, and these flakes are traveling all the way across now. And that's what happens when you have that nice convex shape set up. So I'm going pretty fast, and I may not be explaining quite as well, and that's because I did all of that in the other video. So this is more, like I said, just trying to figure out what we can make out of this cool piece of glass and bringing you guys along for the ride. So if you are watching this and you're like, man, what is this guy doing? He's not explaining himself very well. He's just going too fast. I don't understand this braiding. I don't understand center lines. Like, what is happening here? That means that you should probably click. I'm gonna drop it below. I'll try to drop it on the screen. I don't know what I'm doing, guys. I play in the woods. You know, I teach primitive skills and I play in the woods a lot. So I'm still figuring out the YouTube thing. I'm still trying to figure out all the technology stuff. So I'm gonna try to put a link on the screen. I see people do that. So I'll ask one of my friends and see if I can figure out how I can do that. But yeah, so there we go. Come on, focus. That's flaked all the way across. Looking pretty nice. Now, we want to get rid of this curvature. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna end up losing a little bit of length, probably, but I'm really gonna focus on getting rid of these, you know, that curve. So what I need to do is remove some flakes from this end, and then really on these sides here. So I'm gonna remove that material on the bottom side, bringing that bottom side up, kind of flattening it out this way. And then I'm gonna remove some material in the middle on the top side. So it's curved like this. Now, if I remove that material on the ends, start to bring that up, remove that material in the middle of the tie, flatten that out, we'll get that nice and straight, okay? So I'm gonna focus, again, while I'm doing this, I'm always trying to kill two birds with one stone. So while I'm doing this, I'm going to shape this backside a little bit and flatten that out, driving flakes on the bottom side inward, removing that material. That's gonna bring that, you can see it's closer to my face, it's gonna bring that further away. Do the same thing on the tip. At the same time, I'm going to be bringing it to a tip, okay? So we have a little bit of a square edge on the backside here. I'm gonna set that up. Just creating platform here right now. I might zigzag this a little bit just to make it easier for me to set up that platform. So I've now removed more material on the bottom here. Going to abrade that. And start sending flakes from the back side in towards the middle of this piece. Okay, so before it came much more curved, you can see that kind of flattened that out some. I can still remove some material over here because this isn't flattened out completely. So I'm gonna remove flakes towards the back side. So I'm calling one side the belly, one the back. Okay, the back side is gonna be the one that's kind of humped up like this. The belly is gonna be the curved side. That's curving the opposite way what we want. So I'm removing that material while at the same time shaping this up a little bit. I'm gonna square it off some again. Braid that. Lots of air traffic today, lots of planes. So go ahead and knock some flakes off from the back again. All right, so now you can see that center line here is more in the center where we want it, and that backside's starting to flatten out. Right, that's fairly flat until we get to this tip. So I'm gonna focus first on bringing this to a point, and while we're moving this material on the sides here and here, I'm going to really focus on bringing that all the way in and removing that material so it flattens that out. Okay, so if you look at this, I've kind of got that shaped up a little more the way I want. Now I'm just gonna bring this to a nice tip. I have more to work with here, so I'm going to start there. So I'm actually flaking the opposite way right now. Again, bringing that center line closer to this face. So I'm just kind of using my pressure flaker as what I call a scruncher. So I'm scrunching that edge, and that abrades the edge some, helps me shape it, and also, again, like I said, it'll bring that center line down to where I want it. Do the same on the other side. And then I'll abrade that. And now we can focus on bringing that material up and balancing, straightening this point out. So when I lay this on my palm, it's really easy to see the curvature, and you can see where material needs to be removed. So I'm gonna focus on those areas. So right here, I have a low point. Gonna brush that up a little bit, push in, across, go right next to it, to the next low point. continue working around. Okay. So now we have some flakes starting to travel here. That means that's starting to take the shape that I want. So I'm going to come to this other side and see it still kind of nosedives there at the end. We're going to get rid of that material and get rid of that nosedive thing that's going on. So I'll work this back all the way to about halfway there. And then I'm going to come back to the front and I'm going to work the front a little more. Just bring that center line up some more. And I'll braid that really quickly. And we're just going to give a little more love to the front of this thing. Make sure that you braid, or that you use your pressure flaker to braid. That way that edge isn't really sharp. You don't want to just crush it. You want to actually knock those flakes across and remove that material where you need to. So you want to hear that nice clean like pop sound. You don't want to hear that crushing sound. We want to hear a nice clean pop of that material releasing. And then every time I'll do that, I'm going to stop and look at it. You can see it's already a lot flatter than it was. I'll stop and I'll look at it and I'll move it around and see where else I need to remove material. Okay, so it's coming to more of a point, but it's still kind of got like this weird banana shape. So I'm going to remove some more material over here. So again, I'm thinking backwards first. I'm going to kind of scrunch this the opposite direction. Set up those edges, and I'm also removing that material to give it the shape I want. Okay, so see, I mean 2 seconds there, and now I kind of made that into a point. But I've scrunched this part, so now it looks kind of terrible again, but I did that on purpose. Sometimes you got to get worse before you can get better. So I brought that center line back up and made it look worse, but now we're going to braid it, knock some nice flakes off from this area that is too low, and bring that back into alignment. Make sure there's no glass between your flaker and your finger. That's the worst. Okay. Okay, so it's getting there, but you can still see it has a very slight, a lot of that can be taken out by us removing some of the height on the back side of this. So right now, I'm gonna leave the front and the back alone. I'm gonna scrunch just the middle down to get it closer to the back side now, okay, the opposite side. So you see that? It's already kind of closer to this face. I'm going to take advantage of that. I'm going to remove some material on the top and flatten that out. So I'm just going to take my rock, braid, and now that middle section from about there to about there, knock some flakes across the back side of that. And that's going to help flatten this out as well. And those flakes are really traveling because I have that nice convex edge set up. All right. Already looking better. Do the same thing on this other side. And I might actually take my pressure flaker and do a little scrunch in here. Bring that closer to the face. Some quick braiding. And then a series of flakes in the middle there. So with this idea, you kind of want to be careful. There's a reason I attack the front and the back first, and then I go to the middle. You don't want to thin it out too much in the middle, and you have a lot of weight on the front and the back. If I thin this out too much in the middle, the weight on the front and the back will vibrate, and you'll get what's called in shock, and it'll snap this point in half because you have a lot of mass up here moving around. So you want to be careful. Make sure that you remove enough on the front and back first. Okay, but I've flattened that middle out. You see there's a slight dip there now. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to work on the front and the back a little bit more, and we'll be close to done. Okay, so as I'm doing this, as I'm focusing on the center line and thinning it out, I'm also focusing on bringing this into the shape that I want. So I'll look at it from the top view, and then I'll scrunch this edge a little bit. And every time I'm doing this, I'm doing two things. I'm shaping it this way, but I'm also bringing that center line to one side or the other. So I always want to be really opportunistic with that as I'm shaping. If that center line needs to go to one side or the other to help me knock flakes off, I'm gonna do that. So that's what I'm doing. All of this will make more sense the more you learn. So again, definitely recommend watching my other Flintknapping videos, and I'll have a lot more coming up. I'll have some videos coming out, show you guys how to get started in this for basically free or really cheap, just a couple dollars. Free if you have access to deer antlers and rocks. But if you want to use the stuff I'm using in this video, we can get you started for just a couple dollars. As long as you have one friend that has some way to drill. If not, and you can do it a little more primitive, but all right, so I have to be careful. Sometimes I get a little too OCD, and I'll end up working this down into nothing. But I'm just removing that material to flatten that out, while at the same time shaping this up. All right, so that's flattened out quite a bit. Anywhere where it's closer to one face than the other, I'll just remove material from that side and get rid of those little wiggles. At this point, we're just bringing this into alignment. So I'm going to square off the base of this a little more. You can see there's still a little bit of glass we haven't removed in the middle. So we're gonna go ahead and try to take care of that now. So I'll bring you guys in and use my lap just a little bit. So I'm just gonna take and scrunch this. Then I'm gonna scrunch the base of that to square that off some more. Right. So you can see I brought that center line closer on all of these edges here, closer to that face, so I can remove some more of that material. Bring you guys back up. I'm going to braid that. And now, let's see if we can't get rid of that kind of flat spot we hadn't flaked yet. And just like that, it's gone. Okay, so that's because this is starting to take that shape that we want, that convex shape that we want. So just a couple flakes there gets that pretty well fixed up. And I'm gonna knock some from the back just to square that up a little bit. Honestly, we're about where we wanna be. Okay. So we still have a few little weird spots. And if you look at it this way, when I was removing the material from that side, I actually overdid it a little bit. So I'm going to send a few flakes across that middle to flatten that out a little bit more. And again, as I'm doing that, I'm going to try to straighten these edges up. Most of that, once you have this nice and flat and straight, most of that shaping can be done with scrunching of your pressure flaker mixed with some abrasion. So that already fixed it some, but you can see it's more rounded here, more straight here. So I want to get rid of some of this material and straighten that up. And while at the same time I'm doing that, I'm going to flatten this out some. So my center line is really close to this face. I'm going to take a few flakes across here. Okay, and that was bringing that center line closer to this face where I have that hump. Okay, killing two birds with one stone. Now, I'm going to abrade that. And we're going to send some flakes across this other side. So at this point, because we have this thing shaped the way we want, These flakes travel super easy, so you almost have to be careful you don't send a flake too far that shoots across to the other side and breaks that off. Okay, we don't want to do too much of that. But at this point, I'm just doing some final shaping, straightening up some edges. Okay, and that's looking pretty good. So we can get really particular here and go back and fine touch a few things. But I just want to be careful at this point that I'm basically done, not to get too crazy. Just real careful little flakes, mostly just shaping, and like I said, just being really particular at this point. Because we had a working tool a long time ago. At this point, we are just trying to make it look really pretty. Right. So I think we're gonna stop there for this video. Came out pretty nice. So you guys follow along. The next video, we're gonna turn this into something cool. So we're gonna give this a handle and make it into a small basket maker knife, like my friend and mentor Dave Holiday uses and makes a lot. He actually wrote an article on that, and I'll link that in the next video. But this is what we're able to get today out of that small piece of glass. So now you can see why I was so excited to find something so cool in the creek there, because you can find this stuff all out in nature and make some really cool pieces like this. So I can take a deer with this, I could take pigs, and that's something we're gonna do in the future as well. We're gonna really go down the rabbit hole of these glass arrowheads. You guys seem to like that. My video did pretty well. So we're gonna go down the rabbit hole of these glass arrowheads and show you all kinds of stuff you can do with them, and we're gonna see how well they work on animals. So thanks for following along. Please like and subscribe. Comment below. Tell me what you want. Tell me what you want to see. You guys loved the glass arrowhead stuff. That thing kind of blew up as far as my channel goes. Got lots of comments. So you guys tell me what you want to see the next evolution. You want how you want to see this glass arrowhead stuff go, because something about the glass arrowheads you guys just really enjoy. So if you want to see some different stuff made from glass, if you want to see animals taken with glass arrowheads, let me know what you want to see below. Comment below, and be sure to tag your friends, send this to your friends, and ask them too. I want to know what you guys want to see, and we'll make it happen. So please like and subscribe, and thanks for following along. And yeah, you guys make sure you subscribe or follow our Facebook page as well, Primitive Wilderness Survival on Facebook and Instagram, and head over to the website, see what kind of cool classes we have coming up. If you guys want to make stuff like this, we're actually doing a class right now, the Bison program, where we are making bows and arrows, and we're making stone points, and we're going out and we're going to go out as a tribe over this 5-month period, and at the end of this we're going to hunt a bison together. So if you guys are interested in deep diving into this stuff and spending a couple of days with me just on Flintknapping, and then going all the way through and learning how to use this stuff, you know, slide over to the website, check that out. If you want to just take a Flintknapping class, we're going to have those as well. So check out the website, like, subscribe, follow, check out our social medias, and be sure to give us some feedback and let us know. So thanks for watching, guys.